Hi everyone, it's Helen from Heritage Organic Seeds, and today we're going to be sowing the Courgette Genovese seeds that were in our April subscription box. So Genovese has a really pale skin, which is not like the courgettes that you see in the supermarket, and pale skin varieties are actually becoming increasingly sought after. So it's an exciting one for us to grow. So let's get sowing. We're going to start our courgette seeds off in these 9cm pots. So it just means that they're 9cm in diameter across the top, and they're just nice deep pots to allow the plant to put on some nice healthy growth before we pop those out. So really easy to sow courgettes. So they're not too small, as you can see. This is what your courgette seed looks like. So it's very flat and kind of oval shaped. So the thin side is going to go vertically down into the soil about 2cm deep. And that just means that when we water them, the water's not going to sit and collect on the top of the seed, because if we sowed them flat, the water's just going to sit there, and it's likely going to cause the seed to rot. So about 2cm deep, and backfill that with soil. So we want to keep our seeds at around 20 degrees centigrade while they germinate. So really, if you don't have a heated greenhouse, ideally you want to try and keep these indoors, at least while they germinate. So a nice warm sunny windowsill would be ideal. So about 2cm deep on their side like that, and then water lightly. We don't want to water them too much because we don't want the seeds to be sat in soggy wet compost, because it'll just encourage rotting. So we just want to keep the soil moist, but like I say, not soaking wet. And that, guys, is all there is to it. So once your seedlings start to emerge, the plants will grow really quickly, which is really exciting. So it just feels like we're getting into that growing season properly now, doesn't it? And then you just want to pop your little plant label in. Like I always say, it's a good idea just to pop the date on that you sowed your seeds, just so you can look back for reference. And then once your seedlings germinate, just grow them on in these pots for a little while. They'll put on some healthy root growth, and you'll see some healthy top growth as well. So it'll just make those into nice, strong little plants. And then we won't be planting these out into the ground until around mid-May. Once the risk of frost has passed, everything really in this box, apart from the carrots, is just to kind of hang on before we plant them into the ground until after the frosts. Up here in Cheshire, it is about mid-May, but please do check the frosts in your area first. Like all seedlings, it is always best to harden off your plants before you pop them into their final growing positions. So that just means taking them outside during the day and bringing them back in, either into the greenhouse or into the house at night. And that just helps the plants get used to the different fluctuating temperatures throughout the day, and gets used to wind and whatnot. And it just means that they're not going to be shocked when they go into their final growing positions in the ground. When you do want to plant them out, you want to plant them about 90cm apart. So courgette plants grow really big and bushy. They've got big sprawling leaves. They're not trailing like a normal squash. It'll be like a big kind of bush. So about 90cm apart, and that just gives them plenty of room to grow. So courgettes are really thirsty plants, so keep them well watered all through the growing season, and that will just help them keep producing those delicious fruits. If you want to plant your courgettes into pots, it's going to be one plant per pot, and you want a nice big pot. If you're growing in pots, it's even more important to keep your plants watered, because they cannot find water anywhere else. They rely completely on what you give them, and they will benefit from extra feedings as well if you are growing in pots. But that is always an option. And then you've got some nice courgettes growing next to your kitchen door. Once the plant starts to produce those lovely courgettes, you can harvest them. We recommend harvesting when they're about the size of a banana. And to harvest, really you want to use a knife and then just cut it back at the stalk, and that just helps prevent damaging the plant when you pick the fruits. The courgettes grow super fast, so as soon as you start to see them developing, do keep an eye on them, because it's kind of like blink and then they're just enormous. So do keep an eye on them when you see them starting to produce, and then you won't miss them at their finest. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have any questions at all, please do feel free to reach out to me. The best place is to email me, hello@heritageorganicseeds.com, or drop me a quick message on Instagram. We're at Heritage Organic Seeds. They are the places that I'm kind of most active. So always happy to help anyone with any questions. But I hope you found this video helpful, and happy sowing. And if you don't have a greenhouse and you don't want to direct sow, just try sowing a few seeds with a little seed tray and keep that inside. It's really not rocket science. Just have a go, see what works for you, what you prefer. So we've got our 3 seeds per cell, and we're just going to cover with a light layer of compost. So just make sure that compost is nice and crumbly between your fingers so you're not adding more clumps to the top. The general rule for covering your seeds is to cover the seeds at least as deep as the seed is wide, if that makes sense. So the beetroot seeds are quite thick, so I'd maybe say about half a centimetre of soil on the top if you're not sure. Again, it's not rocket science, don't do them too deep. Just scatter a thin layer of soil. That is all there is to it. And of course, don't forget to mark your seeds, because you might think that you'll remember what you sowed where. I promise you, you won't. Even the best gardeners forget what they sowed. So I've just taken my lollipop sticks that were in the subscription box, and I've just written the variety and the date, just so that I know when I sowed my beetroot, and just pop those in like that. And then just give it a light water. So your beetroot needs temperatures of around 8 degrees Celsius to germinate, so not too high. So I'm just going to keep this module tray in my greenhouse at home, where I'll get lots of sunshine during the day, and that should be fine just to get those going. And we're just going to grow them on for a little bit, and then when the seedlings are large enough to handle, we're just going to take those out of each individual cell, just pop the cell out, and then transplant that whole cell into the ground about 10 centimeters apart. So hopefully, if the weather stays like this, it's not going to be too long before these go into the ground. And then again, that's just going to free up so much space as the weather warms up. Do make sure that you harden off your seedlings before they go into the ground. We recommend that for any seed that's been grown either inside or in the greenhouse. Hardening off will just help them acclimatise to the new growing conditions, and it just means that we're going to take them outside in the morning, pop them back inside or in the greenhouse in the evening. Do that for a few days, maybe around about a week if you can, and they'll just get used to the different kind of temperatures during the day. They'll get used to wind. They're just going to get used to the elements in general, and it just helps to prevent them going into any kind of shock when you do plant them into their final growing positions. Once they're in their final position, we're just going to keep the area weed free and keep our beetroot bulbs well watered over the summer. And then, all being well, we should be able to start harvesting our beetroot from around about July and on into the autumn. So as I said before, do keep successional sowing your beetroot. Set a little reminder on your phone if you need to, and then just keep the process going, so you've always got some fresh, delicious beetroot bulbs to enjoy over the summer and into the autumn. I hope you've enjoyed this sew along video. If you have any questions at all, as always, please do feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help.